Okay, so as I said previously, my name is Katrina Peters with the Nevada Department of Agriculture, and I'm currently our School Nutrition Services Manager here at NDA, and I'm going to go ahead and walk us through the webinar today. We're going to go over some basics of the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. So today we're going to go over cost categories. We're going to go into some detail on claim submission. We'll talk about record keeping and program oversight, and we'll also go over some of the basics of the program requirements. So we'll talk about what allowable fruits and vegetables there are, and we'll also talk about the Buy American provision. And this will by no means be comprehensive of the full program, but it'll kind of hit the highlights of the main pieces. So the USDA has two main cost categories. The first is operating costs, and we'll go into more detail on what those are on the next slide. And then there are administrative costs, and we'll give you examples and details on that as well. So to cover operating costs, those are documented costs needed to implement the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. So that's going to include the cost of your fruits and vegetables. It's going to include low-fat or non-fat dip if you're using those, and those are allowed just for vegetables. It'll also include delivery charges for produce, if any of those apply. And it'll also cover your non-food supplies. So those will be things like napkins, paper plates, serving bowls, or trash bags that you'll need to conduct the fruit and vegetable servings. It'll also include any labor for preparing the fruits and vegetables and for serving them. Okay, now to contrast that with administrative costs, those are the documented administrative costs for each school. And administrative costs are those that relate to program planning or management. So these aren't related to the preparation or service of the fruits and vegetables. And there's a cap. So there's a limit of 10% of each school's fruit and vegetable program allotment that can be used towards administrative costs, and no more than that. And that'll also include the cost of purchasing or leasing equipment. So one thing we've seen that can be really helpful is budgeting out your program costs. So to facilitate your efficient management of the program, it's highly recommended that you develop a year-long budget. And this could be something as simple as a spreadsheet that just plans out your spending and ordering for each school. So you'll want to think about the number of enrolled students plus classroom teachers to calculate the number of servings you'll need. You'll want to think about, there's a requirement to serve 2 days a week. So looking at your school holidays, calculating out how many weeks you'll need to do that for. You'll also want to figure in any expected non-food items, any labor costs, and that's again for preparing and serving the fruits and vegetables. And then you want to calculate in any prorated expenses that you're anticipating. So that'll include your administrative costs, and again, you want to make sure that those are within the 10% allotment. And this can help you plan so that you can offer the fruit and vegetable program throughout the entire school year. So it can help you serve the entire school year and avoid running out of grant funds before the school year is over. Okay, we're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about the claim submission process. So Lori, this will probably be pretty familiar territory for you, but might be new for the other ladies on the call. The claims for reimbursement are submitted in our CNP program, and that's our web-based system for claiming reimbursement for meals served. And I provided the URL of where you can find that web-based system. So to first think about some basics, claims are submitted monthly, and that captures 1 month's worth of expenses. They're submitted within 60 days of the close of the month. So for the September claim, you would have 60 days from the 1st of October to get that claim in. And you submit a claim by each school. So that's the site claim for each school participating. And when you enter CNP and click on Fresh Fruits and Vegetables and then click on Claim, the first section you see is going to be asking you about fresh fruit and vegetable expenditures. So in this section, first you'll want to enter in the description of what fruit and vegetable was ordered, along with the number per case and the unit size. And the total cost, that last column will calculate itself based on the other information you enter. The next section of the claim is going to ask you about direct labor costs. So these are employees preparing and serving the fruits and vegetables. And if you're delivering from the central kitchen, you can also include the costs for driver or fuel costs. So in the description, you'll need to include the employee title, the hours worked, rate of pay plus fringe, if those are being claimed. Okay, next to talk about supplies. The non-food supplies that can be claimed are things like paper plates, bowls, napkins, forks and spoons, and cleaning supplies like trash bags, also gloves to make sure those foods are being served in a safe manner. The one thing to keep in mind is that the combined cost of non-food and direct labor cannot exceed 25% of the school's fresh fruit and vegetable program allotment. So you want to try to keep those costs reasonable and as minimal as possible so we can buy as many fruits and vegetables as possible. Okay, so the next section is going to ask you about supplies. So in that section, you're going to want to include the item being ordered and the number ordered, and the case size or unit along with the price. So we've shown you an example here, hand sanitizer 50, the dollar amount each, and that it's a 16-ounce bottle. The next section is going to ask you about your indirect labor expenditures. And this is where your administrative costs and equipment costs are claimed. In that description, you're going to want to include the title, hours worked, and the rate of pay plus any benefits being claimed. And just a reminder again that the administrative costs can exceed 10% of the school's total fresh fruit and vegetable program allotment. So equipment could possibly be an allowable cost of the grant, but before you order an equipment, you need to contact us and submit a written request to get approval to purchase that equipment. And we'll need you to include the reason or the need for equipment, as well as a breakout of cost. And if 100% of the costs are paid with fresh fruit and vegetable funds, then the equipment can't be shared with other school feeding programs. So if you're sharing that equipment, then the cost needs to be prorated out to those other programs. And if you need any help with that, we're more than happy to walk you through it. If you are approved for an equipment purchase, then you're going to want to enter that into the equipment expenditure section. And we'll need the description, the name, quantity, and cost. And again, just a reminder, this cost of equipment factors into that 10% admin cap. So you'll probably need to run some numbers and see what you can accommodate within that 10% cap if you need to purchase some equipment for the program. Okay, so other information you can access within that CNP system is you can see what your allocation was and what amount you've spent. So on the next slide, we'll show you a screenshot of what that looks like, but just to provide some basic information, the allotment for this grant is broken into 2 award periods. So the first is July through September, And most folks just use this for September, so usually it's just 1 month of the overall award. And then the next amount of the grant is October through June, so that'd be the remainder of the total awarded funds. And we just want to really caution people to be careful to not overspend in that first award period. And on this next screen, we'll show you the expense summary and the historical summary in CNP that can help you keep track of what you spent. So here you see a recap. It breaks down what costs you've claimed so far in terms of operating and administrative costs. Also on that historical summary at the end, it gives you that breakdown of what your different grant award amounts are, what your total award was, and what amount is remaining. So you can use that hopefully in conjunction with a great budget spreadsheet to keep track of the grant amount you've spent and what you have remaining. Okay, so the site claim is the claim for each school site, and those are entered first. We want to let people know that you want to be sure and save your work. If you have to step away for a minute, after 30 minutes, CNP will log you out, and you'll lose that information unless you saved it. You want to check and make sure that everything's entered correctly and click the Submit button. The Save button doesn't submit the claim. So we've had folks in the past hit Save thinking that that would submit it, but you do actually have to click that Submit button as well. So once all the site claims are submitted, you need to then consolidate the claim. The consolidated screen will appear with all the data fields populated based on what you already entered in for your school sites. You want to review that for accuracy and then select the authorized signer from the drop-down menu at the top of the claim form. And we'll show you a screenshot of that on the next slide. And you want to be sure and click that Submit button. So here you see a screenshot of what that monthly consolidated claim is going to look like. And you just want to make sure that your authorized signature is you. You should be the only one entering in the claim under your name. And that you're clicking that Submit button to get that claim all the way through. Okay, now to talk about record keeping. So you're going to need to keep on hand any policy numbered memos that we've sent out that relate to the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. And that's our means of communicating out any updates in guidance or regulations that pertain to the program. You're going to want to gather contact information for each school and sort out sort of who has program responsibility at that location. Sometimes that's the food service manager at that site, and sometimes that's somebody who works more directly with grants. We don't have any hard rules on that. We just like to see that everybody's communicating well and there's a clear understanding of who's responsible for which aspects of the program. You're going to want to keep your invoices and receipts along with backups on your monthly claims and your purchase order information. The requirement is that you'll keep records on hand for 3 years plus the current year. So to talk about oversight and monitoring, we want folks to ensure that the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program is operating properly at participating schools, and we're available to provide technical assistance upon request or as needed. We also want to really strongly encourage folks to review all claims for reimbursement and ensure that expenditures are appropriate for each school. If unallowable costs are submitted for reimbursement, we won't be able to reimburse those. And if it's funds you've already expended, we don't want to see people in the lurch for purchasing things that aren't allowable and then not being reimbursed for them. And also the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program is now part of the administrative review, and ELCO is going to be getting an administrative review this year, so we will be looking at the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program during that process. So again, we want to remind folks to maintain full and accurate Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program records, and that's for 3 years plus current. The exception to that is that you'll need to hang on to those records longer if there are any unresolved audit findings. program staff need to be trained at the start of the school year, and that should cover record keeping and then also serving the fruits and vegetables. So the fresh fruit and vegetables program can't be served during meal times, and the only adults that can participate in taste testing the fruits and vegetables as well are teachers. So we want to make sure folks understand that it can't be given away to parents after school or to all school staff in general. It really needs to be those teachers that are in that classroom participating in the program. Also, there's a requirement to serve the fruits and vegetables at least 2 times per week. Some of the additional program requirements relate to nutrition education. So nutrition education must be conducted along with the fresh fruit and vegetable program, but unfortunately the grant funds can't be used to pay for nutrition education. So we want to encourage folks to explore partnerships, and the University of Nevada, Reno Cooperative Extension has been a really great partner with the fresh fruit and vegetable program. And out of the office up here in Reno, they've been producing fruit and vegetable fact sheets tailored to the specific offering that week. And that's been a great partnership between some of the school districts up here and Cooperative Extension. There's also a lot of existing resources out there. So there are a lot of Harvest of the Month fact sheets that are fact sheets on a particular fruit and vegetable. So I've provided 4 links here of where you can access that information. And some of them are state-specific, but there's just a lot of general information that could easily be used to talk to kids about what this fruit or vegetable looks like when it's whole and how it's prepared and how it's grown and eaten, what nutrients it's high in. And if you need any additional resources, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help with that. So in thinking about allowable fruits and vegetables, it must be a fresh fruit or vegetable, and the exception to that is that a cooked vegetable can be offered once a week. So items like dried fruit, dried vegetables, fruit or vegetable chips, juice, or fruit leather are not allowed. We want those fresh fruit or vegetable offerings. And low-fat dips are only allowed to be served with the veggies. So no dips are allowed with the fruit. This past year, we've had a lot of questions about the Buy American provision. So to talk about some of the basics, fruits and vegetables must be grown in the United States unless it's a domestic item that isn't available, and that's typically something like bananas that are largely grown out of the country, or if a domestic item is cost prohibitive. So that would be in a circumstance where maybe, for example, bananas, there was a domestically available product, but it was just prohibitively expensive to serve. We've also had a lot of folks serve a lot of exotic fruits and vegetables in the program in the past. And for a lot of kids, especially those in low-income areas, any fresh fruit or vegetable is exotic. So this program is really tailored to give kids exposure to fruits and vegetables that haven't had that exposure before and wouldn't get that exposure from home. And we know that kids need that repeated exposure to accept fruits and vegetables. So it's a great opportunity to try interesting versions of things that are already on the lunch menu and provide that repeated exposure. So when it does make its way to the lunch tray, the kids know what it is and they're excited to eat it. So some examples of that could be rainbow carrots. Carrots are now grown in a variety of colors. There's different varieties of cauliflower like yellow or purple. There's also different colors of bell peppers, a really wide variety of melons available, and even different summer and winter squash varieties that can be provided to the kids. So what about buying local? USDA and Food Nutrition Services encourage local purchasing of schools for the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program. And the School Food Authority is the one that decides who's an approved vendor. So we don't have a list that restricts you to using certain folks. You can use anybody that you deem an approved vendor that you consider to meet your particular criteria. And you just want to handle local produce the same way as you would handle whole produce from a regular distributor. So if you did work directly with a farmer to purchase product, or even if you got local produce from your distributor, you just handle that the same way you would any other produce in terms of handling it properly, sanitizing surfaces when chopping and preparing, and keeping it refrigerated. Okay, so what about buying local? You can reach out to your produce vendor and ask them what's available locally. And a lot of times the fresh fruit and vegetable program has that higher dollar amount, so it could potentially allow you to purchase items that you may not otherwise be able to put on your menu. And of course, we always want to encourage folks to keep those federal dollars local and keep those federal dollars within our state of Nevada. Okay, so to touch on some frequently asked questions, we have a lot of folks that ask us that they've been told they can only use one vendor, and that's just not true. So you can use a variety of vendors, such as your local food distributor. We've had folks had great success purchasing fruits and vegetables from Costco. You can even purchase fruits and vegetables from your local grocery store or your local farmer. We've also had quite a few questions about if they do have to serve twice a week, and we want to make sure everybody understands that yes, you do have to serve those fruits or vegetables at least twice a week. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up with any questions you have, and we're going to stop the recording. So thank you all very much for participating.